Let me introduce our speakers here. So we've got, right next to me is Rod Cuthbert. Rod is chairman of Rome to Rio, and many of you will know that Rod actually founded Viator, the attractions company that's now quite large. Hadi Moussa there, he's head of EMEA business development at Airbnb, which is now no longer a disruptor. I think you're just part of the travel industry now, Hadi. So welcome to us all. Last gentleman here is Onno Zoeter. Did I pronounce that correctly? Will that do?
Yeah.
Onno is principal data scientist at Booking.com. So he's interested in artificial intelligence, machine learning, these kinds of things. And last but not least is Brenda van Leeuwen. She's CEO of Eurail. So if we look through the companies, we've got ground attractions, ground tours, yes. Then we've got Airbnb, one type of accommodation. Booking.com, which is an OTA, and then we've got Rail as well. So we're going to be talking about how life is changing for us all. What are the big things that are happening? And if you've got a question, put it on Slido. And Rod, why don't I start with you? Because you mentioned actually beforehand, you talked about Google's growing presence as an intermediary. And I just wonder if Google's presence as a travel intermediary is actually causing us all problems, or is actually giving us all opportunities?
Well, I was actually surprised to see so few people rated Google's presence in the industry, highly as one of the threats on one of the polls we had earlier. I don't think it's because Google's presence in the industry as an intermediary is now not something we can debate. It's just a reality.
It's there.
They're there, and it seems to me that the industry divides itself up into principals, intermediaries, and technology companies. And principals seem to be taking a step back and saying, well, I'm not particularly happy all the time with my relationship with the big guys like Booking.com and Expedia, etc. They extract a lot of commission from me and they push me around a little bit. So maybe I'll exchange this devil for another devil and see how it works out. They feel as though maybe there's some benefit to be had by shifting the power away from the Booking.coms and the Expedias of the world. I wonder whether that is just shifting the monopoly power from one small group to another larger monopoly power. But I think from the point of view of intermediaries, people like Skyscanner and Kayak and Rome to Rio is another example. We all see our results getting pushed down the search results page by a Google result, which they haven't paid for. They own the platform, they operate it, they always put themselves first. It doesn't, from our point of view, it just doesn't seem fair. So we have what's emerging as quite an unfair playing field, and I think it is an issue for everybody in the industry that we've got this company that is richer than all of us, it's got more people than all of us, it's got access to all of the customer data, it knows more about customer usage patterns on the internet, and it can use that data to increase its position of power and its profitability in our sector. And I think that really ought to be something that people are thinking about all the time. It's not, is it going to happen? It's happening.
Okay, and actually, Brenda, just thinking from Eurail's point of view, you're CEO, and Rod mentioned intermediaries like Skyscanner and others, where Rail's not really represented. So is actually Google a good opportunity for you to promote Rail compared to other intermediaries out there, the travel intermediaries? Because I don't, if I look at Expedia, for example, I don't see Rail right as a particular headline.
No, true, and that's an interesting question. And if I would have the answer, I would probably not sit here or something like that. In general, in this kind of intermediate, Rail is is not present, so to say, at all. And we should ask ourselves, why is that? Why is Rail not on those platforms? Is it because a traveler just don't think about Rail when they start traveling? Is flights and bundling with accommodation still more attractive, and is Rail seen as a commute transport for work? Or does it have to do with technology? Because we all know that Rail and the technology behind it is a bit complicated and difficult. I don't see Google per se as a threat, honestly speaking. As a very small company in Utrecht selling to everybody in the world, we need to be smart. We need also limited budgets in that sense. So we partner up, and if that's Google, then it is Google. It's not at the moment the reality, but you need to play smart. And Google is there, and I think they will remain there for multiple reasons. So we're trying to find ways to be smart with the money, if you talk about advertising spend, but also teaming up with platforms like Skyscanner or Expedia. I think that is the right way to go. Are we there? No, because I believe there need to be more talks to give Rail the prominent place it deserves at those platforms.
Okay. And Hadi, if we look at Airbnb, you've been very focused on your accommodation product. You're head of business development. Does Airbnb have any plans to spread beyond its core accommodation product at all, and actually maybe be more like more like an OTA?
Well, I guess, linked also back to your question around Google, we see Google as a very interesting channel, but the way that we are thinking about Airbnb now is more of a travel platform, so not just an accommodation platform. A travel platform means that would include your accommodation, it would include the activities that you would do at the destination, it includes who you spend time with, how you get there, etc. And that's really the evolution of Airbnb and the way that we can potentially also bring people directly to Airbnb as well. Now, the first kind of vertical within that is called experiences. So we launched something called experiences almost 18 months ago now. And experiences are really activities that you could do at the destination. And that's really kind of the first step of Airbnb providing services in addition to just accommodation. And I think that's kind of where we see the future of Airbnb going forward.
How do those services work? Are they a similar business model to Airbnb accommodation where you're getting service providers to actually use you as the go-between?
Correct. So it's still a platform that connects hosts to guests. And the host in this case would have a specific passion into a certain area, let's say art or culture or food. And they would be creating experiences in those specific areas. And then we would market those experiences to people who are booking their homes on Airbnb to get people to book also their activities at the destination.
Okay. Rod, that sounds a little bit like Rome to Rio, doesn't it?
Well, Rome to Rio is a search engine that helps you figure out how to get from A to B.
Okay, sorry.
So it'll tell you whether you can fly or take a train or whatever.
Okay.
But I just want to come back to your point about rail in distribution. Claire Gill-Martin from Trainline is going to be here as a speaker in a couple of days' time, and I think she'll talk about the fact that they're selling 500,000 tickets a week, at least, online. It's just that we don't give a lot of prominence to these companies yet, and maybe that's because the Expedias and others in the OTA space haven't got to rail yet. They've been so busy making a lot of money out of hotels, where there is a lot of money to be made. There's not a lot of margin in rail, but it will come.
Okay. Oh no, because you're sitting there quietly. You're a data scientist, so we'll tend to sit there quietly. But I'm just thinking of still this intermediary space where I'm still got my thinking cap on about Google. I was just wondering, in your world of machine learning and artificial intelligence, you're a data scientist, you're making use of data. If you've got traffic coming in via Google, is that spoiling your opportunity to collect and make good use of data for machine learning, AI, which is also working towards selling more?
Well, so what is interesting for us is an edge we have over Google is that people they make their final choice on our platform. And that is something that Google does not have. So if you look at this very difficult thing for lots of people to figure out where are you going to go, where are you going to spend your summer holiday with your family, it's a big decision for people. We see that back in data also, how much time people spend. And so if we are there to help people get the most out of that trip, the most out of that holiday, then all the people before them have given their final big vote, the big dollar vote on our platform. So that is in some sense a big advantage we have over Google.
Yes, and of course the other advantage that maybe you have, and Hadi, you as well as Airbnb, as big businesses, I guess that you can afford to invest much, much more in technology than your smaller competitors. Brenda, from your point of view, do you feel that if, who do you think is the biggest in rail? Who's your biggest competitor? Or wouldn't you like to say that?
It depends on what you define as rail. I mean, I'm in the business of selling a pass. And
yes,
I think one of my friends of the competition is in the room from Rail Europe.
Yes.
But there are also, of course, the individual carriers who send point-to-point tickets. So rail is not one thing. So
okay, so let me come back, Hadi, to you maybe, and to Onno as well. You'll both work for big companies, so you can afford big technology budgets. Does that just help to continue to propel you both ahead of the competition, so you get even bigger and you propel yourselves further ahead of the competition?
I mean, in our case, it's the focus is really on how we use that data to match the guest to the right type of accommodation and the right type of experience that they want, and also kind of using that data to match you to the right experience, but for the right type of trip. So we've recently announced a few things. One is what we call collections, for example. And collections is really about matching you to a specific, to your specific demographic and making sure that we are showing you accommodations that work for you. As an example, we launched something called the Family Collection. So if you're traveling as a family, you get access to those specific properties that have been rated by other families as, say, 5 stars. They have all of the amenities that a family actually needs. And so in terms of doing that level of matching, it works a lot better. And I think we're really moving into that direction where we augment the data that we have. We use it to better match the guest to the host, to the property for that specific trip. And that's kind of where we are trying to push and trying to improve the user experience, and that way increasing customer loyalty, which helps with kind of retention, but also with growth as well.
Okay, and, oh, sorry, Rod, you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to come back to something that Onno said, and I'm sure he knows it, but just doesn't want to say it, so I'll say it. One of the things that Google are doing with their Google Hotels product is they're allowing the hotel directly to advertise. So if the consumer chooses a particular property and says, I want to book that property, they can book and they can pay using Google Pay. So now they are getting that payment data, and they're at the top of the funnel. And they've built this wonderful big technology suite and a huge army of engineers on the back of the revenue from advertising that these guys and people like us have paid to them over the last few years. So it's a funny situation.
But we can't do anything about it, can we, Rod?
No.
It's there, so we can talk about it and sigh, but...
the European Commissioner might decide to do something in the future. She's done that in regards to shopping. She may get a bee in her bonnet about travel. That would be a good thing.
Okay, thank you. But Onno, we were just hearing from Hadi just now about his use of artificial intelligence to help personalize product offers more. Presumably that's a lot of what you're doing as a data scientist.
Yes, very much so. And it's actually, when you ask what value, what role does data play, we sometimes, mildly tongue-in-cheek, we talk about the AI flywheel. So if you have the most data or the most customers, you will get the most data. You will be able.
That's aggregated data.
No, so for the example of families.
Okay.
So if we look at families that have made decisions in the past, have left reviews with positive and negative things about a particular place, and now a new family comes along, then it's aggregated at the family level. But maybe it is also this family that has done previous trips with us and have liked or disliked certain aspects of previous stays. So then we can help these people by surfacing and guiding people to the things that they will enjoy the most.
Because there's two ways that you could use data. You could use data, lots of data aggregated to try and find trends. People who live in northwest London tend to stay in these 5 hotels, for an extreme example. That's aggregated data. Or you can use data, we know these people are families, let's offer them a family hotel. In booking, where you'll have lots of data. Do you do both, or do you favor one of those approaches?
So it's a continuum in the sense that we can say all families in the past, or all families that have booked something in the past and complained about the pool, or right, and then you might fall into the bucket of having booked with us in the past and complained about the pool. You might be about to book a resort where other people have complained about the pool, and so this is. And I don't know if the power law, does that say anything to you? Most things internet, oddly enough, follow a power law. That means that a few things you see a lot, and then many things you see very little.
Yes.
The most famous thing is in the words in the English language. Zip was the first. The first word you see 1, the second most frequently word 1/2, 1/3. And so for us it means that, you know, a very frequently seen type of traveler going to Paris, we can help very well. A more unique configuration going to rural China, where we have less data, then we need to basically try to understand the underlying patterns to help those people. So as you move out to the tail of this distribution, to things that you've not seen too often, then the challenge is more difficult, and we do both. We do both.
So Rod, from your slightly independent point of view, sitting next to Airbnb and Booking.com, do you feel that bigger intermediaries in travel have such an advantage of data, huge amounts of data, and much larger technology budgets that actually more independent, smaller businesses can't compete?
No, I don't think so.
You disagree with that, yeah?
Well,
that's good.
Yeah, okay, I disagree with that.
Good, okay.
I think once you reach a particular point, if you've got, for instance, 10 million visitors in a month, that's an enormous amount of data, and the experiences, the things that you learn from 10 million are probably not going to be a lot different to what you would learn from having 100 million visitors in a month. So, and also small technology teams can often develop things very quickly. They don't have the politics, they don't have all the nonsense that goes with large corporations. These guys probably won't disagree with me about that, because I'm sure they deal with politics and nonsense all the time. So often we can get things done quite quickly.
Okay. Brenda.
I might have an independent view here, because I do believe that for relatively small companies, this speed of technology innovation and changing behavior of clients, which you can find out with data, is quite of a thing, because at least if I look to my company or the community, we don't have that huge budget to be on the spot all the time or to hire the right people. I mean, you just mentioned to me how many data analysts you have. I mean, I have 2. And this is more numbers behind. While you serve the same customer with a similar need, and where you also have the ambition, at least, to personalize and to provide that right offer for that particular segment. But you have to do it differently, because you simply don't have the bandwidth in terms of money and manpower to deal with it.
And manpower is an interesting thing to mention, Brenda, because if we're now talking about technology and moving forward in the digital world, it's about technology, but maybe it's about hiring the right people and getting the right people on board. And I wonder if any of you have any thoughts on how you try to attract the best talent to your business. So say I'm a fantastic data analyst. How would you try and attract me to your businesses? It's you really want me to work for you. Do you just offer me big salaries, or the chance? Well, I'm very happy about that. Or the chance to work for a small, innovative, go-ahead company? How do you attract big talent? Onno, have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, it is indeed on top of mind. To get the right people is always difficult. It's such a hot market with salaries going up, opportunities going up. So it is something we do spend a lot of time on, a lot of energy on. It's in fact one of the reasons I'm here. So we're just to get it out there. We're hiring at all levels. And then if you ask me for a pitch,
Right later on.
no, if you ask me for a pitch, so definitely within travel, we have the biggest data set. We have the biggest team to go and very quickly. And of course, there's politics everywhere, but as companies go, I've seen my share in the day. It is, fingers crossed, it is suspicious. I'm proud on how low it is for so big, the big company it is. So with our experimentation culture, people can go and start their experiment first day they arrive. If they're very good, they can start their first experiment on their first day. And we try to set people up in such a way that the biggest limiting factor is themselves. And
okay.
so that's, if that's what you're excited about, to have impact on millions of people a day, then companies like us, I mean, I'm sure that Hadi would say the same thing about Airbnb, but that is great. And it is, I don't know what fraction of you have a tech background, but one important lesson is it's not just about the pure tech play here. It's very important, those people that understand both, that understand the commercial, the product side of things, and then what technology can bring. So those people that will recognize all the opportunities and will be able to drive projects as efficiently as possible.
Okay. Rod, will you say something?
Worth saying that I think that some companies quickly develop a reputation in the industry, and I think I'm lucky I don't have to be controversial.
What do you mean by reputation in the industry?
Well, Brenda's company is very small, so I don't know the reputation. I assume that it's very good, but certainly Booking.com and Airbnb have a widely held reputation as being good places to work with a really good culture. I don't have to name some other big companies in the travel industry, but there are some that really have the reverse of that.
Oh, who are they?
Well, talk to me later. I think a lot of people would know that there are some places that they just don't have that positive glow about them.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. So I would agree with the earlier point that one of the key challenges that you offer is working on these kind of big problems that affect millions of people. So 300, 400 million people have already used Airbnb. It's available across all countries in most cities. And so you have the chance to work on really challenging problems that affect a lot of people. But in addition to that, the culture of Airbnb, I think there is a lot of focus on creating the right type of culture for people. A culture where people are able to innovate, where people are kind of very open, they are able to share learnings, where kind of a failure is tolerated. You could try a lot of things, and even if they fail, as long as there are learnings, that would be considered a success. So I think the culture element, and also the more practical aspects of flexibility and work-life balance, I think these elements also become really important, especially in the context of Silicon Valley, where you have a lot of talent, but the competition for talent today is very, very hard and very, very significant. And so these are the things that we focus on at Airbnb.
One of the keys to success, perhaps, having the right culture that attracts the right people?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, that's fine. By the way, I'm doing all the talking here. If you want to ask questions, pop a hand up or even type on the screen. Here's an interesting question. What about package travel directive? Isn't this the biggest threat to innovations made by startups? Who'd like to answer that? Who's got an opinion on that? Hands up who knows what the package travel directive is. Okay, so moving on then. The package travel directive, if I'm not mistaken, is a directive that requires you to be bonded. Someone told me if I'm getting this wrong. Requires you to submit a financial bond if you want to bundle together a hotel and a flight and sell them as a package holiday. Am I right? Those who know what the package travel directive? Yes, I got a nod there, sort of.
It's changing a little bit further than that.
Thank you, Dick. Do you want to expand on that? Should we run a microphone round to you now? Okay, I thought not. Is this the biggest threat to innovations made by startups? And I wonder if that is around the issue that you need to have a certain financial standing or submit a bond, guarantee some money, and so you can't actually be a package travel company in the UK unless you've got some money behind you already, which doesn't help startups. Any thoughts on that at all?
I guess it really depends if you're trying to innovate vertically or trying to innovate kind of in a specific part of the travel industry. Because I think where we see startups and a lot of innovations, they happen in a very specific parts where it doesn't really require bundling. And in that case, I don't see the travel directive as a big threat to startups. But if you're trying to be that, kind of one-stop shop where you're trying to bring all of these different services together, I think it would actually become more challenging in the new context with the new directive.
So I guess it's a question of putting your business model together so you don't actually run foul of the package travel directive. Who submitted that question? Who'd like to expand on it? Okay, fine. Let's move on. We're going to be talking about blockchain in the next day or so. It's a very fashionable subject. And winding trees mentioned. Do we see blockchain as a threat to OTAs, Onno? So I'm asking you this because you work for Booking.com.
Because I work for an OTA.
And also
I'm
you
a
understand
tech
data
person.
and science and things.
Well,
Yes.
the blockchain is something special for me in the sense that I limit myself not to look at blockchain. It is so difficult to keep a pace with what is happening in machine learning. I deliberately tell myself, don't go into the rabbit hole. So,
Okay, so
I
we
will give this one a pass if you don't mind.
Okay.
I was at a conference there is another conference that I was at a couple of weeks ago. Nowhere near as good as this one.
Well said. Stay on stage.
But there was a chap there who gave a 25-minute presentation about blockchain, and I think my view was consistent with 99% of the people in the room. It was that we were more confused after the presentation than we were before.
I'm running a forum on Thursday called All About Blockchain.
Well, beware of that then.
So we'll find out what happens. I don't know what you all think. I think blockchain is more a potential disruptor to the financial transactions that flow around the travel industry because it has the opportunity to cut out the financial middlemen, I would say. I don't know if any of you want to comment on that or not. So you could imagine, I mean, there's a new initiative called Travel Ledger, which is going to be a blockchain-based financial settlement system for ground products, for your products, which will not have a central authority like IATA's billing and settlement plan. It'll be distributed technology. And I see those kind of areas being the ones where blockchain might most succeed. I don't know if any of you got any other opinions or not.
I mean, again, it really depends on whether you believe the blockchain can create that element of trust. So whether if you create that distributed system, it creates more trust than having a central authority. I mean, in the case of Airbnb, the early days were very, very challenging because people did not trust the concept. And I think over time, Airbnb has become that almost trusted brand, which helps connect people. And so taking away that trusted brand, can you create that element of trust in a distributed system? For me, that's kind of the key question, and whether the answer to that question determines whether blockchain can have.
Let's talk about that because I can see the top question there. Where will differentiation come from? If you're a big OTA, you do on the one hand you don't want your customer-facing website to be too radical, because people won't know how to use it. On the other hand, you don't want it to be too much like everybody else's. And at the same time, you need to establish some kind of brand differentiation as well. And if you're an OTA selling hotels and flights, and maybe the odd excursion as well, how does one go about achieving that differentiation? I don't know if any of you have any thoughts or not. Or do you not achieve differentiation, or do you just have so much financial muscle you just advertise online like there's no tomorrow and pummel the competition down? Because there are actually two successful strategies that you can be the biggest and the best, and actually you have returns to your financial muscle, or you can be fleet of foot and be a differentiator. But I just want to know whether you think that if you if your business is successful and you become a big OTA, a big online travel agent, whether you can actually differentiate or you can't do that anymore. Any thoughts? Any of you at all?
Yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts there. I think the first thing is that the user experience, in other words, the graphical interface that the consumer uses to go through the shopping process and then the purchase process, I think they differ widely across sites.
Okay.
Some are really terrific, some are pretty average, and some are really, really awful. I don't know if you ever tried to book a train ticket on the Renfe site, the Spanish rail operator. You have to go to a 3-month course, I think.
Do they have a monopoly on Spanish rail?
No. You can buy it on Trainline or all sorts of other places. So I think the whole UX thing, the user experience, is a way for differentiation.
Okay.
And the other thing I think is the difference between sites who offer everything, a marketplace, and allow the user to scroll through millions of options, and those that will take a more curated approach and say, well, we've looked at the offering in this area and we think these are the 5 things that you should look at more closely and select from. So there's a couple of ways.
Okay. Brenda?
Yeah, for me, the whole data part comes in because I'm not sure you necessarily need to package everything all the time. It really depends on your customer insights. I mean, we have travelers who just want a train pass, and that's fine. But we also have customers coming from the States who ask the questions, how do I get from Rome to Italy? Really happened. So they need much more information about the concept, the product, and not necessarily per se a total package. So personalization is really coming here into play to start differentiating based on the needs of your clients.
Okay. Daniel, you've got a point to make. Stand up so everyone can see you and introduce yourself. Thank you.
My name is Daniel Vishnia. I'm from GCH Hotel Group from Germany.
Thank you.
I will try to make it simple, but if I see it from outside as an hotelier, I see Booking.com. I know they are doing, I don't know, some 10,000 of A/B testing a week, something like that. Very much artificial intelligence and machine learning, focusing on what you're doing best and to optimize what you're continue to do. You're optimizing the same flow of selling the hotels by the best price. Sometimes people, they complain that people coming on the same session, looking at the same page, seeing different things, even different prices. But this is the way you do, to optimize better and to gain the client. And the other hand, I see Airbnb more focused on millennial, let's say, or more connected people, and to give them, like you said, the experience now, the top programs that you have now, focusing in another way to gain, again, the client. And I see a huge technology coming, the assistant, the voice, and I see it more even natural. This is coming. I'm talking to my watch, and I'm not a millennial, as you can see.
Oh, but you were doing that down when it was clockwork, so.
Yeah, I know, not only for weather, but I'm searching, and we saw the last I/O from Google asking for, I don't know, to go to the
hairdresser.
Hairstyle or something. But I see this happening to the next time that somebody will book an hotel, and the machine will talk with them, and again about the experiencing. And now the artificial intelligence or the pattern association, the way Booking.com or the hotels are working will change, really. What are your thoughts regarding the assistant, the virtual assistants, and the new technology that is coming, and how can these huge companies approach them? Because I see that if these companies, the meta search and the OTAs are not looking at this side, they will just lose the battle. This is what I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very interesting area. And I think specifically for travel, it's obviously a lot more complicated than booking a hairdresser, which is, in the case of a hairdresser, it's kind of very structured. There are only kind of very few variants of what you are trying to achieve. I think it will definitely be an area where all travel companies will start to experiment. But I think it would probably take a bit longer to get there. And like the reason I say that is if I look today at user behavior on Airbnb, we still see a lot of people who do their research on mobile, but they're still not comfortable actually even finishing the booking on mobile itself, because they need that more research. They need to see the different places, the different homes. They want the pictures. They want a bigger screen. They want to put them next to each other. They want to compare the different amenities. So there are lots of factors that make it a little bit more complicated, and I would say that means it would probably take longer than some of the applications you're seeing today.
So from my point of view as a technologist, I'm super excited about what's about to come. And I think travel will be a very beautiful place for assistance eventually. If we look at, if we look along with users on how they book their trip, I don't know if you remember the booking.yeah advertisements, really understanding that people, it's an emotional, stressful thing sometimes, where now we're very good at helping people picking an accommodation, but the problem is a lot larger. Where are you going to go? Where will your family really have a great time? And then, of course, where you stay is an important thing, but how you get there, we should be able to help. So, these are the places you can get to by train. These are the places you can get to by airline. You really love the Tate Modern here, so you should go and see the Stedelijk in Amsterdam, and that is an opportunity to help customers. It's a big problem that's at the moment not solved online. So we see lots of beautiful challenges for us. Then if it goes through assistance or an app or a website, it will be all of that, and then it might shift to more explicit dialogues as we see in an assistant. But we already under the hood treat the buttons and the web interface and the app interface as such.
Okay, so just quickly then, across the four of you, lots of technology we're going to be talking about the next few days. We'll start with you, Brenda, because you're about to speak. Which is the number one technology do you think we really need to pay attention to for the rest of 2018 and into 19?
Sorry, to what do we?
Which is the technology we really need to pay attention to 2018 and 2019?
Yeah, for me, it's still the point we had talked about on the artificial intelligence stuff. Nevertheless, I strongly believe that in travel, especially if you talk about travel in terms of holidays, the human part remains important. I think even if we could provide all these intelligences, like with the hairdresser case, the money a customer spent is not on the level of the hairdresser. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of euros. People save their money for years to do a travel in Europe or Vietnam or whatever. They want to remain reinsured by a person, I believe. Nevertheless, this technology needs to be watched. And if you ask me, for instance, about the threats and where do I wake up at night, how do we keep up with this? How do you find the right balance? And how do we ensure that you still have the emotional part, like Rod also said about user interface, because travel, going on holiday, is and will remain an experience. And that needs to be facilitated.
Okay. Onno, it's a tricky question for you to answer because you're a data scientist and you're into machine learning and artificial intelligence. Do you think we'll all get bored with that one day? We'll move on to something else? Or do you think that's...
No,
or do you think artificial intelligence and machine learning has so much mileage in it that in 5 or 6 years' time we'll still be talking about it, but it will have evolved to be something more sophisticated than it is today?
So I've been doing this full-time for 20 years, and it has gone by different names, and it has gone up and down in hype cycles. So it's always scary. The hype is, of course, very much on.
Yes.
So, of course, there will be people that have too high of an expectation of it. But I see it now in my day job. This is a thing. It is critical in all steps in the customer journey in our company. And that will remain a thing. What I do hope, so one of my missions at Booking is to make sure that this becomes, say, a commodity very quickly. So there will be a big chunk that becomes a little bit demystified, and it will, oh, is it just X? And you would want to have the largest group of people in your company with that understanding and that attitude for the say, the biggest, the commodity size of machine learning. And then I see it a little bit like the parallel with mobile phones. So when they just launched the iPhone, you really wanted to update every year because the improvement was so much that you would envy the people that had, 1 year newer phone. And at one point it levels out. So maybe now on laptops you don't mind if it's the 2019 or 2018. I expect this type of transient to be there for a while.
Slowing off, yes, okay.
Well, but it will be steep for a while. So
Okay.
don't build something today and expect it to be relevant for 5 years or so.
Hadi, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I agree with what's already been said. I think machine learning, I don't see it as a threat. I see it as a big opportunity. I think now that you have these big businesses, in our cases, with big network effects, which actually have a lot of data, how you use that data can create a lot of opportunities. And that's something we're also very, very focused on.
Okay, Rod?
Look, I'll take a contrarian view here and say
Okay.
that I'm constantly amused by technologists in the travel industry who want to shorten the discovery and search process for consumers, totally overlooking the fact that there is an enormous body of research that says that the search and discovery process is a crucial element of the satisfaction that people get from travel. It's spending a lot of time looking at all those different resorts on the Amalfi Coast. That's an important part. Whilst they're still probably sitting at their desk at work 3 weeks before their trip, the experience they have there, they don't want it to be over in 5 minutes. They want it to take days. They want to look at a dozen different sites.
Part of their journey.
And when I hear, and Google fall for this all the time, they're always getting up and saying, we're going to give you the answer in 300 milliseconds. People don't want that. So I'm always amused when technologists get up and talk about this because it's just not what people want, and they'll avoid those products.
Now, are you sure about this, Rob? Because I seem to remember in the world of sales and marketing that there are two things you should do. You shouldn't offer people too much choice because it confuses them, number one. And number two, once they've chosen something, you shut up and you don't try and sell it anymore. You just let them buy it. I think those are the two sales. Is that not just traditional sales and marketing? So wouldn't you argue against yourself if
Well,
you
look, I
agreed
think
with that?
there's types of travel. If I'm booking yet another, for instance, if I'm a business person based in London, I've got to go to Manchester yet again, I don't need to spend a lot of time looking at that. And if I can talk to an assistant somehow or other, and he can just book the right train for me or plane or whatever and get all that done very quickly, then that's fantastic. But if I'm taking the family on a 3-week trip to Sicily and I'm excited about it and I want to look at all the different islands and think about all those different things, that search and discovery process, I want to stretch that out.
That's fair enough. Well, while now you're talking about that search and discovery process, it meant you were looking at pictures, maybe some virtual reality and the like, and yet we're beginning to see that voice technology is coming along now. I've got plenty of Amazon Echoes at home, and I talk to my watch nowadays if I want to dial a number, and it talks to me. And as voice technology comes into being, do you think that's taking away our opportunity to differentiate our businesses? Because if I want to, I don't know, book a hotel in Rome, for example, and I tell Siri or I tell Alexa, can I have a hotel in Rome, please? 5-star, these are the dates, I don't want to spend too much money. I won't even look at that hotel. Are we moving to that stage, or do you think actually voice is not going to be much used? I ask because I believe in China, messaging, I think it's text messaging, is becoming the way to do commerce nowadays. And that will, of course, translate to voice once we've got good voice processing. Anyone got any thoughts on that at all?
I think if you think about the sort of things that we buy in travel, whether it's a flight or a train or a hotel or whatever, there are so many variables involved that to have that be part of a spoken dialogue, whereas if it's on the screen and we can see, the number of, the square feet of the room and what floor it's on and whether it's got a particular view and which brand the hotel is and all that type of
Unless,
stuff.
of course, it's a flight, Rod, when we wouldn't care, would we? We just want the cheapest flight, maybe?
Well, but maybe we're comparing half a dozen different flights, and I don't want to fly on this carrier, I'd rather fly on that carrier. And it takes a long time for a voice interaction to get all that choice across.
Hadi, you're nodding a lot?
Yeah, well, I think it actually depends on the kind of the phase of your journey, of the booking journey itself, and the specific service that you're booking. I think during the inspiration phase, you probably need more than just an assistant. You probably want to look at the pictures, you want to be inspired. And I think once you make a decision, then depending on the type of service, I think in the case of flight, you care less in a way. You're trying to optimize for time and price, and then maybe an assistant can help you do that. Whereas at home, you can think of a number of hundreds of varieties of different homes, and you actually might need to see and compare. And in that case, it's more difficult to get that done through an assistant. Not impossible.
Okay.
Difficult.
So maybe we're thinking, even though we're going to be talking about voice, maybe we're going to be talking about voice in the next few days in a service element. For example, we're in a hotel and we have an automated voice concierge rather than actually booking via voice. Maybe that's the way voice and travel are going to be working together.
I think people will need to get used to the fact that they spend money through voice. So they will book taxis and buy pizzas well before they book two-week holidays through that channel.
We're coming to the end of our time now, but I'd just like to ask you all where you think the opportunities might be to expand. I suppose we better talk about your business, expand your businesses in the future, or maybe you can talk about all of our businesses. We could be talking about new geographic markets, maybe going to markets that are not yet exploited, or we could be talking about extending our product range, Hadi, as you mentioned, or maybe with you, Onno, we'd be talking about using technology in a more sophisticated way. Don't know about you, Rod. Sorry, I don't know where you might expand, but I just wonder, maybe we'll start with you, Rod, where you think the opportunities, maybe for yourself or for the industry, the wider industry, might be to expand our businesses and make a bit more money.
Well, I think there's actually an overlap between those two things. We're focused on ground transportation, and a very small percentage overall of rail and coach and ferry. Ferry is very important in Europe, particularly in the summer months, is booked online. So I think there's tremendous opportunity for us as a company and for the industry generally to integrate those booking opportunities into their booking flow and into their business.
And that sounds like a technological play then. You use the word integration.
Yeah, there's certainly work to be done at all levels.
Okay, thank you. Hadi, any thoughts, or have you already taken over the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of opportunities if you think in two ways. One is within the accommodation segment, and the other one is in new verticals. Within accommodation, we've recently announced that we're launching kind of new tiers of accommodation. So we know that a lot of guests have been asking for a higher quality of service, for example. And so we've launched something called Airbnb Plus, where the properties are, provide a very high quality service by high quality hosts, but also are actually individually vetted by Airbnb, which is kind of a whole new level of trust and service that we've not provided in the past. We've also announced kind of a new tier called Beyond by Airbnb, which is more the luxury segment. And that combines, high-end homes with very, very high-end hospitality as well. So even within accommodation, there are still significant opportunities. And then outside accommodation, again, it's the new vertical. So experiences is a big one for us. We'll continue to focus on it. And then the question is, what do the guests and hosts actually need in terms of additional services? And I think over time, you'll see us build these new verticals on the platform as well.
Is Airbnb looking at new geographic markets, or are you more or less everywhere now?
I mean, we are in most countries, in 191 countries, because the platform itself scales organically. But obviously, internally, we have a number of markets that we're focusing on. Everyone talks about China. China is, we're seeing significant growth in terms of travelers outbound from China. So that would be one example of a geographic market where we also focus.
Okay. Onno, any thoughts?
So let me give a technologist answer.
Yes.
So the comment earlier on of the assistant of helping people on more aspects of the trip than just booking the accommodation, I think there's a beautiful problem to be solved there. And as Rob mentioned, that it's very easy to get a very clumsy version of that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So the artful balance of technology and really understanding customers and the right design, user experience, building that out, I think would be a great challenge, and I think great for travelers. So that's what we're going to try and do.
Good. Brenda, any thoughts?
Yeah, many thoughts, and that's what also wakes me up at night. I mean, in terms of geographical areas, for us, the Asian area is very important, like China. But the most challenging part is how do you deal with all the data you have around customers and apply that. To make an example on China, we always thought that the Chinese people would love to see Chinese people in the imagery. Well, that's not the case because they moved to Europe, that's the product we're selling, and they want to see Europe, so European. So data says a lot, big things and small things. And I think the challenge is in really how to utilize that and delivering on your business results. One other thing I like to add is for us, the community concept is very important because people also travel through Europe by train to get in contact with locals and gathering together. So we are thinking a lot about how to do that within, for instance, a Facebook or without. So we're playing around with all kind of tools available to have travelers connected together so they can help also each other in delivering on the experience and be part of their own discovery phase and helping each other, which we have great success in as we speak. Just to mention a few.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it might be time for a drink. So let's thank Rod and Hadi and Onno and Brenda very much for a great panel session. Thank you, guys.